Hi, Gopi Society. Good, happy Sunday night, and I hope that everybody is enjoying Memorial Day weekend. So far, so good. And I'm just going to wait for everybody to come on. Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back. I can't believe a whole week has gone by and it's already Sunday night. So, everybody, I'm so excited to have you. And welcome, welcome, welcome. Now, usually what you're all used to is that I talk for a very long time, probably for close to an hour. And I am inviting everybody to Just Right June. And I'm telling everybody that tonight is going to be a little bit different. I am not going to be talking for close to an hour. And the reason being is that the message tonight and the message for the whole of June is just right. And what I mean by that, what my goal is either to make you feel just right or to speak for a just right amount of time that you can take a message, take something that I'm talking about and use it to your advantage, but not to be overwhelmed. You see, to me, Memorial Day weekend is the start of a transition. It's the start of going from the school year slowly being over, the hot weather slowly coming upon us, and a transition happen. And when a transition happens to many of us, it's very discombobulating, and it's not an easy thing, and we're not on easy footing. So now is not the time to get overwhelmed. In fact, now is the time to be empowered and to feel that we have what it takes to be able to get through this transition and to enter into all the good that the other side is going to bring, right? As soon as we get through the transition and we get into smooth sailing, we can enjoy the hot weather, we can enjoy the stability and everybody kind of staying true to where and what they're all about. Now, I want to start off by saying that that's not an easy thing. And so if I can, and if I may, I just want to start with everyone should be walking around in June with a $20 bill or a $10 bill or a $5 bill, any dollar bill in their pocket. Why? So if you take a dollar bill, if you take a $20 bill and you step on it and you squish it and you crunch it up, pretty much as long as you don't rip it, what happens is when you open it up, right, what you're left with is pretty much the same value as before you crunched it, you squished it, you stepped on it. And oftentimes we feel that our value changes. We feel much less than or uncomfortable, or it starts to grate on our self-esteem when we've been crunched up and smashed and garbage put all over us, and this one not doing what we want them to, and that one not doing what they want them to, and getting all overwhelmed. But if I could leave you with this, that in the month of June, when we feel like we're squished up the most, perhaps, because there are so many things coming at us. There's finals, and there's kids not behaving during hot weather, and there's all the expectations of having to get certain things done before the transition happens, and this one has to go to camp, and that trunk has to go, and this one doesn't want to go, and all of that, in addition to just the idea of what's happening in the world kind of reopening and revisiting, it's hard sometimes to feel like a crisp dollar bill. And that is why, if we can just kind of understand that our value is exactly the same, if not even more, because honestly, after we've been squished and made dirty, and we're still okay, then it shows that we're resilient and that we're capable. So very, very important. Take your dollar bill, keep it in that pocket. Remember, it's all squished up, but it retains its value. So with that, welcome everybody to Just Right June, and let's hold on to some very key principles that we can hold on to during this time of transition and know that it is not so easy, but we will get through it, and we will get through it well, and we will do it. Okay, so what can we talk about when it comes to Just Right June? So first, let's understand what being just right really is. So if you can take, for example, in your mind, the idea of a balloon, okay? And I do this with my patients all the time, and let's understand the balloon. So if I overblow the balloon, what ultimately happens is it pops. And if I don't put enough air in the balloon, it ultimately stays shriveled up. The goal of a balloon is really to blow just enough amount of air that it gets its message across and it gets blown up without getting too much and without getting too little. Essentially, that's what regulation is all about. Understanding that when we are too much, when someone is too much, their voice is too loud, they're too emotional, their message is too strong, right? We're screaming or being screamed at, the intensity is there. That is too much. When we are too little, when a child is ignoring or not responding, right? That's too little, or speaking in a too low voice, or not giving enough information, right? That's too little. The goal for all intents and purposes for a healthy, regulated family or communication or community, anything, is to be just right. And the goal of Just Right June is to help to really get that going, because essentially we don't communicate effectively when we're too much or too little. And if we can tap in to when that's happening and not move on until we are just right, then we are going to be able to handle all communication with ourselves, with our spouses, with our children, because essentially we're bringing the best of ourselves into the situation. What do you mean the best of ourselves? As I have mentioned, and I will continue to mention, when we're emotionally charged up, when a situation is emotionally charged up, the best that we have, our brain power, is not functioning. We're not at our best. We're literally functioning like animals do, with the back of our brain, the part that we share with animals, with reptiles. We are not engaging in the front part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, which gives us our best thinking and our best problem solving. So all of the issues that are going to come up in June, be it your child taking finals, be it your child not listening because he wants to play outside, be it that sleep is an issue because of the whole seasonal thing, right? Anything that is going on is much more likely to be benefited from when you are just right. Okay, so Just Right June is really essential. Let's hold on for yourself, in your image, in your head, to that balloon, and you kind of function knowing that that's where you're up to, right? That balloon. You want that balloon to be able to, whoa, float into the sky, not pop, and certainly not be shriveled. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we handle all of the different transitions that June has to offer in a just right way? So I'm going to really cut it to really basic things. And what's a basic thing? A basic thing is A, B, and C. So what I want you to remember, what is A? A is adjusting expectations, right? So I didn't say that we're at $1 million value in our pocket. I said you're a dollar bill in your pocket. No, I'm just kidding. No, really, you are definitely a value, and you can be in $1 million value. That's not what's essential. What's essential is that you adjust the expectations for yourself and for your children. There are so many things that are going to be coming up in the month of June. Let's take, for example, an easy one, right? So there are finals that are going to be happening. And many of you wrote in, how do I motivate my teen to study for all of her finals? Or how do I get through the intensity of the life experience when my child has finals, because it creates so much intensity in our family. Okay, so let's start, for example, with the child, the teenager who is needs to be motivated because they are perhaps not necessarily doing as well as you would want them to be doing in the subjects, right? So adjusting expectations perhaps in that regard would be not to say, okay, you know what? I want my child to get 100 on every exam, or even let's even go like lower than that. I would like for my child to tell me about all of their finals, and then, through that dialogue, I'm going to be able to, motivate them to study. Okay, that is not realistic if you've never had that conversation all year long. So what, finals are going to be anything different? Why in the world would your child, your teenager, care to tell you about all of their finals, right? So adjusting expectations perhaps having a conversation and identifying maybe, okay, so I know that you have finals, and I know that that's, something that's your domain, and you've been fine with it and handling it yourself, and that's all cool. But how about this? Finals are really important. And so I'm thinking, how about if you just told me about, and I understood the plan for one of your finals. Pick any one. Could you please pick one, that kind of resonates with me, like one of the important ones, not like an elective, but yeah, can you just pick one and let me understand with you what you're going to be doing about it? How are you going to be studying? Do you have the notes, so that I can at least be, feel good about one of those subjects? Okay. So what does that do? So we're going to discuss more about how to adjust expectations, but essentially what that does is it starts the dialogue. And one of my big beliefs, and this is something you've heard me say many, many times, is that positivity connects. So if I have a positive dialogue about math, and my child, my teenager, whomever is able to say, okay, so I got the notes, and I know that I'm going to study, and I'm going to study this, and don't worry, I have it. Okay, so, at least I'm engaging with them in one subject, then perhaps it might not be as bad or as hard to say, okay, well, that wasn't so bad. How about we do another? Now, I wouldn't necessarily do that right away. I might wait a little bit, or just kind of see how, let the dust settle a little bit, but that's adjusting expectations. Here's another adjustment of expectation. So you might expect that your children are just self-motivated. You know what? I know that it's such an important thing to study for finals, and the finals are so important. So I don't have to do anything else that's going to motivate them. Why would I have to? Because they're supposed to, right? I love that they're supposed to study for finals. And the truth is, yes, you're right, they are. Adjust your expectations, because no, not every child is going to be motivated. And if they are motivated, they can even be more motivated perhaps if they are able to have a conversation with you about, okay, so let's go subject by subject and tell me what you are hoping to get, what you're aiming for. And then if I feel like that's good, great, okay. But if I feel like, you know what, this is nice, but how about if we partner together and we make it even more worth your while, because I will add this amount or this going on if you study for a certain amount, or go over it with me, or review it, or show me that you're studying, or even how you do on the exam. You know what, you might have to adjust your expectation. Why? Because honestly, not everybody is self-motivated. Okay, so that would be adjusting the expectation. There's something else about adjusting expectation. What about the expectation for yourself as a mom, right? Why in the world? Yes, I do understand that it is really important for you, let's say, because you want your child to be successful and you see the benefit of them doing well on their finals. But at a certain point, you can also adjust your expectation to say, you know what? I think that I instilled that idea in them. I think they know it. I think that I am available. And I think that I'm going to hold off on being a helicopter mom, let's just say. And I'm going to allow them to make their own bed and live in it. And I know that that's a hard thing for many parents because it's not something that we want to do. Like, we know how important, let's say, it is, or we think that this is something that is so crucial to their future. But at the end of the day, we might adjust our expectation and say, you know what? I did my best. I provided what they needed, and at this point, they're old enough. Or I used to study with them for everything, but now I'm going to adjust that expectation because I have other responsibilities, and I want to empower them to say, you know what? I think that you've got this. I can test you if you need, or I can help you get notes, in any way, or I can explain something perhaps if you don't understand it, or I can provide a tutoring service if you need it. But other than that, you're on your own with that. And sometimes when we're setting our transitional time in June, we have to see where we have to adjust our own expectations and say, you know what, like, I don't think that I have to be on top of this particular issue. I can pull back a little bit and empower them to make good decisions for themselves. Or I could utilize my spouse and help and ask for their help in perhaps delegating some of the responsibility, right? Or adjusting expectations to say, you know what, I know that it's really important that I be present, and we'll get to what that means. I know that I am essential to, let's say, my child understanding math, but I was also thinking that I was essential to making delicious gourmet dinners, maybe during the month of June, until finals are over. I adjust that expectation, not make gourmet dinners, perhaps do something that's a little bit less than gourmet, takeout, or very basic, things that kind of come much more easily. And in that way, what I can do is adjust the expectations of what is expected of me as being mommy, and, delegate where it needs to be. And I think that the more that we adjust expectations in a way, the more that we can build in the success and feel very good about what it is that we're doing. I want to understand for a moment what it really means to be adjusting expectations. So one of the things that I've been introducing, I think this is a really, really important concept. Okay, this is one of the Gobi important concepts, is something called a success stack. And what is that? So essentially, you can download the success stack and have the actual form, which is nice and pretty. But really what it does is it says to you, take the goal that you want, right? I want that my child is going to sleep through the night, right? Make sure that you understand what your ultimate goal is, but adjust expectations in that you break it up into small parts, right? So let's say I break up small parts of, I want my child to sleep through the night. Okay, what would be step number one? So step number one is that when I'm putting them to bed, they don't come out of bed, right? So that is the first step in ultimately what the highest step is, that they sleep through the night all by themselves. So how would I do that? So level one is that they follow the sleep rules. Right? What are the sleep rules? So the sleep rules, for those of you that are joining that don't know, rule number 1, eyes shut. Rule number 2, head on the pillow. Rule number 3, no talking. So if they keep to those 3 rules, then I will keep to my rule, which is that I will go back and forth checking on them depending on how capable they are without me. So what does that do? It says I'm not going to expect right away and give them reward for doing what? For just sleeping through the night, because that's not setting myself up for success. That's not setting them up for success. Instead, I start with level 1, which is they're just going to follow the sleep rules when I'm putting them to sleep. I'm going to do my part. And then comes 2 other parts, right? Number 1 is you develop the level, right? You break it up. You say what you want to accomplish on a smaller level. Number 2 is that you have a mantra. We can do it. This is going to be great. I've got this. You've got this. And so before we actually get to the process of doing it, before bed, we say, hey, I've got this. You've got this, right? Whatever that mantra is. And B is that's what they get rewarded for. So they're rewarded on level 1 for doing just the sleep rules, and you're doing the same, and you practice that and you practice that and you practice that until you get to the next stage. And the next stage is going to be something a little bit more. And then you're going to do the same thing. You have your mantra, you have your reward, and boom, it's amazing. You accomplish that, and then you grow. And by doing that, what ultimately you're able to do is you build on success. You adjust your expectations to the point where you no longer, it's not all or nothing. It's not, I just want my child to get 100. That's ridiculous. That doesn't set you up for success, and it doesn't set them up for success. Okay, so that is the A. A is adjusting expectations, and through a success stack, it allows you to be able to adjust expectations, right? Let me just use a third example so that we're really kind of like fleshing it out. So if I want my children to not fight with each other all the time outdoors now that the weather is warm. Okay. So we could just say, okay, so I want my children to live in perfect harmony with their siblings. Like, that is not a realistic way to conceptualize if they're fighting and hurting and bothering each other. So adjusting the expectations would be to say, okay, so I'm going to start up small. I'm going to say they're just keeping to the safety rules. What are the safety rules? So the safety rules are no hurting, no physical touching of body or property without asking first. Or you can also bump it up to, and no hurting people's feelings with your words. But let's say you want to start it even smaller. So you just want to do the physical. No one hurts somebody else. And what's the definition? No one touches somebody else unless they have asked them first. Okay, so that is already adjusting the expectations. Why? Because I'm not saying, okay, I just want my kids to get along with each other. No, I'm going to just focus on the smallest part, which happens to be the most essential part. Safety is definitely paramount to everything else. I'm going to then be able to focus very specifically on just that level of expectation. And by doing that, I set myself and my children, our expectations are down, and our success rate can therefore be much, much higher. Okay, so now I understand what it means to adjust expectation. That's the A. What's the B? So the B is be present. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So we could say, right, let's get back to that, my child who's now has their head on the pillow, eyes shut, and mouth, no talking, right? So I could say, okay, great. So you did your job very good. I'm going to reward you, and you did great. But the truth is, unless you're present, unless you're really focused on what is going on and allowing, going that back and forth, then honestly, it's going to fall flat, right? There's just no way. And let's take another example, right? So let's take that child, your children that have been fighting so much outside because the weather is warm, and now they are, kind of fighting with each other. So okay, so now I have the safety rules. So great, wonderful. So now they're going to keep to them, and I'm going to reward them for good behavior. No. Let's go back and let's understand that oftentimes when it comes to sibling rivalry, one of the major ways to combat sibling rivalry is to be present. Be present with each individual child. Maybe take, even if it's once a week, just the opportunity to kind of get to know your child, spend a few moments just alone with each of your individual children. If your children are having a difficult time following safety rules and hitting each other and whatnot, it's good to kind of understand with them that when they are having a difficult time, well, first of all, it might be possible, if it's possible for you to be present when they are playing outside while you just introduce the safety rules, that might be a good idea. And I don't mean you don't have to sit down and play with them, but just be kind of able to oversee. When you set a rule, it's good to kind of oversee it. And I'm not in any way telling you, okay, so now you're going to be even more overwhelmed by just right, June. No, but the idea is that quality goes a really long way. And if you are having them be keeping to the safety rules, it would be a really good idea for you to be around to, keep up with those. Or if you are, discussing with your teenager who's having a very intense experience now that finals are upon us, or slowly getting upon us, and you are insisting for whatever reason that your child be present at the meals, then, number one, if we're going to adjust our expectation, then perhaps your child only has to, your teenager can be there for a limited time, understanding that, she wants to make use of all of her time to be studying, or one meal a day or every other day, whatever that might be. But then also you being present means you got to shut the cell phone. Like, are you kidding me? You made her come down, be present, just be yourself. And I think that that's really important. Like, if you're going to insist on something, then put your money where your mouth is. I think that goes a long way. Okay. Let's just understand for a moment that being present is, there's the physical presence and there is the emotional presence. And you can't be present if you are in any way, shape, or form overtired, overstressed. I think taking time for yourself is not a bad thing. And I know it's very overwhelming. Now is not the time. But if we do have to have just a few moments before or after at any point in your day, it really would be a good idea. You being present is very important to the overall regulation of everybody in the home. Now, I just want to stop by saying, so the third part, and then we'll get into some details. The third part, the C, is to be calm. And this goes back to one of the crucial elements of what Just Right June is all about. So what are the telltale signs that let us know that we are or aren't calm? So our voice and our overall body posture, and really it's the physical signs that let us know that we are regulated, that we're calm, that we're just right. The tone of our voice, our facial expressions, even the words that we use. And oftentimes when our children show that they are not just right, we talk them through it anyway. So if a child is getting really upset, like, no, but I really wanted to go. And we say, no, but there's no reason that you should, don't worry because you'll be able to go tomorrow. So every time that our child starts to talk to us in a not just right voice, and we, for better or for worse, decide that it's a good idea to talk to them at that moment, what we're doing is we're basically holding up a sign that says, good news, love the voice, keep up the good work, right? We are negotiating with terrorists. And my big belief is that we do not do so. No. So what does that actually mean? What that means is like this. When our child or anyone is having an emotionally too much reaction and is talking to us like we are that scrunched up dollar bill that's in our pocket, and they're whining, or they're getting all upset, or it's so unfair, how could you do that, it's right? So when they start to talk to us in that voice, our job is not to negotiate with that level of terror, but rather to say too much and whoa, now, if they can handle us saying, take it down a notch or get calm, right? Then wonderful. But many times they can't. And so what do we do about that? So it's just going to make them more upset. So essentially we put the spotlight on ourselves, and we're like, you know what? This is too much for me to handle. I have to take it down a notch. I'll tell you when I'm ready. I'm too much, right? Now, by the way, when someone yells at me, I definitely get an emotional rise. So I'm not lying. So whether or not I can handle it, not handle it, it is so essential that what do? That I take it down and I start breathing. I start doing whatever it might be that's going to take me into my calm zone. But more importantly, there is no no conversation that is had when someone is emotionally charged up. And if we do have the conversation, like I said, that's a billboard for saying, yeah, continue this. This is wonderful. No. So yes, I understand that children want an answer, and oftentimes it seems like they are really upset about something, and so we want to get to the bottom of it, but absolutely not when they are all frenzied and yelling and getting upset. Their voice is too loud, their body posture is too tight, and there's no way. I wouldn't negotiate with a snake, so I'm not going to negotiate with them. And so what that means is taking it down, and when they are calm, and when you are calm, then it's like, oh, okay, so what was it that you needed? Let's work it out. Or I see how hard it was for you to kind of come back to yourself. I'm all available. What's up? Right? And then only then. Now, if you really do this, then what happens is your child is motivated more than anything else, more than a prize, more than this is the only way that you are going to come to a resolution. So you're gonna need to get calm. It's gonna happen. And when we do that, when we really do that, then the intensity in our homes, in our lives, in our relationships, it goes down. And the Just Right June really makes a difference. You see, it is so essential that we don't just plow through that emotional experience. Because when we do, really what we're saying is, I don't need the best of you to have this conversation with me. I could take any part of you. I just want to get it done. That's not a great conversation. That's not a great way to be, right? So if doors are being slammed, and then it's like, oh, well, can I have? Well, that's nice, but let's wait until everything is just right. And when it's just right, then we can work it out. And if we can work it out, and you got just right, then you have me at the table to work it out. Otherwise, you don't. And you're not going to be having me at the table. I will not engage in that level of terror. It's not going to happen. And that allows for real communication to start to happen, because real communication happens when you're talking to another person. When you're not talking to another person, it doesn't happen. And so we have to give value to our capability to have a conversation. We have to give value to our capability to have a calm, less intense experience, knowing that we're going to get maximum results if we just insist that anyone that talks to me, anytime that you're talking, you're just right. And if you're not, take it down a notch and then come back to me and we will be able to work it out. And like I said, there are certain levels of developmental levels that like children are willing to do this. Now, I have, and I've spoken about in advance, you can download what it means to get a calm box. And what is that? So in advance of this, knowing how important it is to get calm, it is good to prepare in advance what your child or what you might do to get calm. If it's crash onto a beanbag chair, if it's draw, if it's use your poppet, if it's have a cheap set of music thing that that goes on play that they can listen to. If it's a bubble wrap, I buy tons and tons of bubble wrap and give it out to my patients, because honestly, it's like one of those things, you just pop it and you feel the release and it feels really good. But there's no way that I can have balloons in my room, like I was saying, if they've all popped, right? It's not happening. And so it would be good in advance that a child, an adult, anyone know that there is what they need in their grasp as quickly as they need it. Now, getting back to the be present. So oftentimes I'm going to tell you that children do not appreciate having to go to their room when everyone's downstairs, right? Go to your room, go upstairs. And either it's anxiety, or they feel like this level of banishment, or they feel so far away from those things that really contain them that really could be helpful. So I don't necessarily say go to your room, right? And going to your room for sometimes is great, but that might not even be the best spot, because let's say the kid shares a room with somebody and that room is taken. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be go to your room. So oftentimes when I say be present, right, there's the A, adjust expectations, the B, be present, and C, get calm. So being present can oftentimes mean send the child, if you have the calm box, you can put the calm box in a room perhaps 2 rooms over or even in the next room so that the child has you present, right? So yes, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so you need to send the child kind of in a lone spot. But banishing them up to the room is not always in accordance with the be present. So that's where having a calm box or a calm something that could move depending on where you are or depending where the child is could really be helpful. Okay, so let's just take, for example, some of the, just to really understand together that adjusting your expectations helps you and helps your child. If it's for sleep, like we said, break it down. If it's for studying for finals, expecting too much from them or expecting too much from yourself to be helpful to them, not needed. Okay. And of course, your children being with good behavior and behaving nicely with each other, outside, inside. There is a lot more outdoor time as the weather gets warm. And I think that it's really important that I had mentioned safety rules. So safety is always paramount. And if you don't have consistent rules, then I think that it's probably a nice place to start is to espouse the safety rules. And one of the ways, just kind of, let's just throw it out there, is to differentiate between a safety rule and a regular rule. So in a regular rule, if it gets violated, whatever happens. You can say, that you can ask them again, or, you can kind of even say, you know what, you're too much, go find yourself a corner, kind of take your comm box. There's a level of, it's very surface level. You followed, you didn't follow, maybe you're too much, maybe you're too little, we can adjust that. But when a safety rule gets violated, that's a different thing. That that can't be on the same level. And for that, I oftentimes, just like I espouse having a comm box, something that you can kind of hold on to that in the moment can really address the concern. So too, when it comes to a safety rule, there should be a level of consequence. There should be something else that happens, not just go get calm because someone got hurt or a safety rule got violated. And so with that, if you have in advance, perhaps a couple of expectations or a couple of consequences, well, now that, every time that a child, is too much, but actually breaks a safety rule, you can choose, one of the 4 expectations, one of the 4 consequences for any one of your children. But if you have that in advance, then it becomes very matter of fact. You don't have to then, you yourself doesn't have to become too much. You can be just right. You can just be able to just mete out whatever that consequence is. Of course, after the child has already gotten to be just right? First they get just right. And then you could say, okay, this is what happened. A safety rule was breached and here's the consequence. You don't want to just give them the consequence because they're not calm enough to be able to handle it, right? So we first get calm, just like we would be for any rule. But then there's that additional piece because safety is always paramount. And if they understand the differentiation, then they can adjust themselves to the expectation as well. So we have adjusting the expectation, we have being present, both with regard to your piece in whatever it is. You want to be present, either physically present, you want to be really emotionally present by perhaps giving to your child, having that alone time, especially when your children are fighting with each other. That is oftentimes to kind of reflect on where you're essentially more needed than perhaps being the cook, right? Or perhaps being the organizer, or the party planner even, but emotionally kind of being there just to kind of re-regulate and understanding that that your presence oftentimes plays a big role in the way that any system kind of, continues on. So if it's a sleep system that you're putting in, you're going to put forth a little bit more energy and effort in the beginning so that you can, you'll be able to adjust that expectation for them kind of going forward. So you put in more in the beginning and then you can kind of pull back. If it means that your children are having a lot more sibling rivalry issues, as I mentioned, it would be good to kind of have just a brief alone time with each of them to kind of nurture whatever it is that's happening. And being present is also with a teenager, being able to kind of understand, I see that you're studying, and I appreciate that you don't want me to get involved, but perhaps, make a list of different foods that you might want, or, is there something that I can do to be helpful to you, and not so much, telling them what to do, but more asking them, being present in a way that's not as being the expert, but rather just being, helpful, and very, very matter of fact, not with any strings attached. Of course, you can add strings, like I said, if you're going to adjust expectations to kind of perhaps give some reward kind of off the bat. But being present is, just being there and giving, freely, knowing that perhaps you're not going to get anything back, but it just feels like that is where you yourself can kind of find your niche and being able to be helpful to them. And of course, the third, A, B, and the C is calm. And like we said, we don't negotiate with terrorists. It's not of anybody's interest to be talking through any very intense moment. You don't put in too much air into a balloon because it pops. And when it pops, that's it, and into the balloon. So similarly, it is so important that we re-regulate. We re-regulate ourselves. We re-regulate anyone that we're going to be in a conversation with. And in that way, they know the importance of being just right. And in that way, we will get everybody back down to a cognitive way before we discuss with them and talk to them about anything that's happening. And the success stack is really helpful in being able to do all of that, because it sets it up that you're going to have small and steady increments before you get to your goal. And while you're looking for your goal, while you're trying to reach your goal in those small steps, you have a mantra, you have a way to kind of have self-talk, and of course a reward. And and as we had started, and this is something, as we get into the whole month of Just Right June, have that dollar bill crushed up in your pocket, knowing fully well that the value of a crushed up dollar is just the same as the value of a non-crisp, beautiful dollar. And so you might be feeling crushed up. There might be things that come your way, especially during this time of transition, as your child is trying to get ready to camp, and as things are happening and the pressures are building, and the hot weather is coming, and you might feel very crushed up. But rest assured, your value is just as much, if not even more, because you're resilient through all of the folds and crush ups. And just remember that. So hold on to that. Hold on, because we are going to get through it. And we just are entering into this June experience, and it's going to be great. So tune in next week. And next week, actually, we're going to have some special new part to the live. I can't wait. But it's coming at a transition time, which are not easy. So enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend, and I'll be seeing you soon. All right. Take care. Bye, guys.